Hey guys, today we're going to look at our outstanding remittance project, and this is ultimately a method of submitting invoices to reclaim cash that Amazon has refused to pay us for items that they incorrectly received at their warehouses. So ultimately, they did receive goods that we paid for and shipped, but they never paid us because they, in error, received those units to an incorrect PO, and we never submitted an invoice for those units. So let me dive right in. So this will be the report that we'll look at either quarterly or annually, and it's going to be a list of every single invoice that Amazon refused to pay, at least in part. So there's basically a shortage claim across, in 2019, there's shortage claims for 240 separate invoices down here you can see. Now the total amount that Amazon refused to pay us, now this is for each invoice, this is the amount that Amazon refused to pay us on the initial invoice. Now keep in mind we repeatedly submit new invoices, and each time those new submissions often reclaim more cash. That's our current POD process. So this amount, our gross shortage amount, is only the first body of cash on that invoice that Amazon refused to pay us. Now in 2019, across 240 PODs, we saw down here $163,000 withheld. Now that number is a little different than I mentioned before, but I'm doing this calculation differently so that it's better, more correctly suited for the analysis that we're trying to do. So across 240 POs, invoices, Amazon refused to pay us $163,000 initially. Now as we submit more and more invoices, we reclaim more and more of that cash. Now today, midway through, at the end of first quarter in 2020, we still have a net shortage amount on some of these invoices. So if there's a net shortage amount, it means there's still an amount outstanding that has yet to be paid by Amazon. So this is the net remaining amount that Amazon needs to pay us. And, on these blank items, those items have been paid in full. And for items where there's an amount here, this is the cash that we're trying to reclaim. Now, if you highlight this, you can see that there's $40,000 that's still unpaid. So basically what's happened here, Amazon refused to pay us $163,000, and then we submit a bunch of PODs through our POD process, and then we reduce that number down here to $40,000. Now this is basically the same amount that my analysis has called out thus far, and it's about 2% of our gross billing in 2019. So the more cash we can reclaim out of this 40,000, the more, the better for us. So we're going to be able to reclaim this. So that's what we're trying to do with this project. So just real quickly here, we're going to take a look at the first line item just so you can see how the sheet works. This is for CB Form 6, so we can go down here, CB Form 6, and we're going to filter. This column I is the original invoice name. We're going to filter on this, and we're going to look at this invoice. So here we can see the initial invoice was for $17,600, and Amazon only paid right here $124. Now the difference, the amount that Amazon did not pay us on the first submission was $17,503, and that's why we see right here $17,503 is the initial gross amount. So long story short, we submit a bunch of shortage claim invoices to recoup this cash. These are the amounts that we get along the way, and ultimately we have this amount remaining. Okay, so we can see all of this amounts to $11,700, which is short of the $17,600 that we initially submitted, and this is the amount on our last submission, the amount of the invoice that we submitted that Amazon has not paid. So on this one line item, which it's multiple now, but on this one invoice, we tried to reclaim all this full amount in full, and this amount is still outstanding on the last shortage claim invoice, and this is the amount that we're going to try and chase, and we're going to try and recoup this $5,846 right now. So what we're going to do here is just simply look at this last invoice number in Vendor Central, because this is the invoice that Amazon has not paid against, this last amount. All these other ones have been submitted and have been completed in full, except for this one. So we're going to figure out how we're going to try and reclaim this money here. So we're going to look this up in Vendor Central. And here we go. And here we see the invoice is been submitted. It's been submitted. It was submitted a long time ago, and it just hasn't been paid. So we got to figure out what's going on here. This is money that's on the table that Amazon should be paying us. So we're simply going to look at this invoice, and we're going to see here's the item on this invoice that was not paid. Here's the amount that's outstanding, and here's the shortage amount. So basically, we've got all these units that Amazon is saying wasn't shipped, and we've got to find these units and submit an invoice to Amazon so that we can reclaim these units. So we're simply going to take this ASIN, and we're going to look up this ASIN in orders, purchase orders. And here you can search POs or ASINs, and we're just going to search the ASIN. And one thing to note here is you always want to select closed, and right now we're looking at 2019 closed out invoices, so we're going to select 2019 and select close. Click submit, and then here we're going to see every single PO that Amazon placed and whether or not they received units to it. So what I like to do is look here in this column, quantity received, filter high to low. So now we can see every line item that Amazon placed for this, every purchase order that Amazon placed for this unit and how much they received to it. The lower down here you go, Amazon sent a bunch of purchase orders. They didn't receive any shipments or any units to it. And here's all the ones they did receive. So now our goal is to figure out which of these purchase orders we shipped units towards and invoiced Amazon for, and which of these purchase orders we never shipped Amazon for. Now, if we find that Amazon received units to one of these purchase orders and we never submitted an invoice, then we know that Amazon likely misreceived those units to an incorrect PO and we never invoiced for them. And then that's where we want to go to Amazon and find, submit an invoice for those units that Amazon never paid us. So that's what we're going to do right now. Okay, guys. So now we're simply going to start looking through the list. We're going to check this first line item. We see that they really just received quite a lot of inventory. In this case, the case size is times 12, and the number received is 299. So they're multiplying this 299 times 12, and it's obvious that they received a ton of inventory here. It's pretty obvious that this is one of the main POs we shipped, but it doesn't matter. We're just going to look at this anyways. We're just going to go through the list. We're just going to take this first PO, and we're going to go to 0 and see if there's an invoice that exists in our system for this shipment. So we can just search this invoice, and we see, boom, this invoice comes up, okay? So we know that likely this is not our culprit. We shipped this inventory, they received it, no harm, no foul. We're going to look at this one too. Of course, you can dive a little deeper than this and look at the actual unit count, but we're not going to do that for this exercise, and I don't think we really need to moving forward. We just want to find a PO that units were received that we did not invoice. So here we're looking at the second one here, and we see that now there could be a lot of invoices here, but we can add on the end, and we can just look at strictly Aztec, and we can see, okay, here's our invoice for Aztec, so we invoiced this as well. So this is all good and well. Inventory was received on both of these, and we submitted invoices. We have invoice records of it, and now we're going to go into our third one. And here we see, boom. Okay, so this is great. Well, it's not great, but it points out the issue, namely that we never shipped any units on this PO. We don't have an invoice for it. We never had any intention of shipping units against this PO. But we look in Amazon's system, we see here, 188 cases were received. And this makes total sense because this is a small purchase order for 27. Now, we wouldn't really, in this case with Aztec, we wouldn't have really shipped against this because this is a small order. But somehow, Amazon received 188 cases to this purchase order. So this is a perfect culprit. And, you know, likely what happened, and this is happening all down the line. But fortunately, in our case, we only have, you know, the initial 5.8K outstanding. Everything else has been paid to us through our POD process. So this is the cash that we have not been paid for, the units that we've shipped. So we're going to try and recoup this right now. And we've done this, and we've basically targeted units that Amazon has received that we have not invoiced for and not been remitted for. And they've received a number of units here. And this is a perfect instance where we can submit an invoice for this PO and Amazon has record of receiving inventory here. So from here, we're simply going to submit an invoice for the outstanding amount of the 580, and then we're going to reclaim that, and then Aztec will be reconciled, and we will have received all remittance that we need to on this for this account. Okay, guys. So we've targeted the line item that Amazon has misreceived the units for right here, and we know that we never invoiced or shipped to this direct PO, but they received units to it. So we're going to just submit an invoice for the units that Amazon has not paid us. Okay. We know that right here there's 796 unpaid for this dollar amount, and so we're just going to go ahead and create our invoice records, and I've already created it here. 796 units. The price matches $6.50 per unit. This is going to BC, so we add our tax rate, and then boom, here's our total amount, 5432. Similarly, we're going to go to Amazon and create our Amazon invoice as well. So here's our PO, our invoice in Vendor Central. Here's our PO or our invoice number, and we've got our 796 units, 5% tax, and then boom, here's our total amount that matches. So we're going to submit this invoice to Amazon to reclaim our outstanding units, and then we're going to create our zero record, so we have that as well, and we're going to be 99% of the way there. Okay, guys, and the last thing we want to do is reconcile our spreadsheet so that we know what we've done here. On the second tab on our outstanding remittance sheet, which is what I discussed in the beginning of the segment, we're just going to add a line item here so that we have a record of the invoices we created. This is going to create some back-end bookkeeping issues. So we want to know that we've created this zero invoice and submitted it to Amazon as well, so that we know we have a list of invoices that we've kind of doubled up on in zero. And so in these columns, we're going to see our new invoice number. Now, when we're looking at each of these, we might not find units that Amazon misreceived. Okay, so only if there's an invoice number and an amount in these columns have we submitted an invoice for due to the misreceive issue, and we're going to try and reclaim money for that. Now, if we highlight all these amounts, you can see that I've submitted missing unit invoices for 6.4K right here, and we can see what those invoice numbers are. And these invoices exist in zero, and we know exactly which ones they are and why we submitted them. It was for this initial shortage claim invoice number. And then you might find, like in this case, there was a shortage amount, and I found missing units misreceived to two different invoices. So that's why I've created two new invoices here, because they misreceived units to two different POs, so we needed to submit two different invoices. And you can see the amount for each of these next to it. So ultimately, so far, we've submitted 4 misreceived invoices and recouped $6,500, which I think is pretty good. Now we've only looked at 6 shortage claim invoices. And what we're going to do, we're going to go back to our gross tab, and we're going to filter out shortage claims that have been paid in full. So we're only going to look at shortage claims that have not been fully reconciled. So we're only going to look at this no, because this says paid in full. No, and this is the amount where there's a net shortage claim that we're going to look at. So we're going to try and reclaim this $40,000, and we just knocked this one out, this Aztec shortage claim, $5,500. So now we can move on and continue our process and going down this list. Okay, and we can mark this however we want, move on to the next one, and repeat the process. Now this one, you can see there's only $8 remaining, so maybe that's not worth it. This is filtered here on the gross shortage, but this is almost paid in full, so we might realize, oh, maybe that's not worth our time. Maybe we want to go down here and look at UNFI. Now I've already looked at UNFI as well, so we can filter those out, which I'm not going to do right now. But we can just go down the list and do all the damage we can, and looking at all these misreceived issues, throw them in the tracker, and then see how much money we can reclaim here. And that's the full process. Any questions, be sure to reach out. Thanks, guys.